Good afternoon, students. Welcome, parents, bienvenidos, padres, and thank you, teachers, for supporting us during this very important event. I'd like to welcome everyone here that has a contribution in this very special moment that we're celebrating today. Dr. Sarah Noguchi and everyone in our Sacramento City Unified School District for embracing our Ben Carson Reading Project and for assisting us at many levels to make this happen. Ms. Tumua, who was very instrumental in facilitating the creation of the Sac City Unified School District Ben Carson Reading Rooms. Also, Ms. Doris Lumsden of the Richard Lumsden Foundation for sponsoring the Sacramento Ben Carson Reading Rooms. And of course, we want to acknowledge that these are the first reading rooms in the state of California. Wow, let's give a big hand. That is amazing. We are one of the very first schools to have an opening. I also want to take a moment to also thank my colleagues that are participating in this very important opening celebration. Mr. Richard Dixon, Principal of David Lubin, Ms. Tiffany Smith-Simmons, Principal of Harkness Elementary School, Tenley Luke, Principal of Hollywood Park Elementary, Ms. Evelyn Bafico, John Cabrillo Elementary School Principal, and I could not go without saying and sending a very special thank you to all the Ethel I. Baker staff, our Kate Tedesco and our Jennifer Sparks for leading this very important project, and everyone in the committee. Ms. Tanny Lambert, Paige Maines, Amy Montez, the 6th grade students, the 5th grade student leads, everyone has contributed. And that is the Ethel I. Baker way. We are here as a community, as a familia. Somos familia. So that's why we're here. Now I would like to take the opportunity to introduce our wonderful leader, a wonderful friend, a person that cares about everything you're doing here at Ethel I. Baker and at every school here in Sacramento City Unified School District. Dr. Sarah Noguchi, our interim superintendent.
Thank you, Principal Ariana. Good afternoon, students. Quite impressive how well behaved all of you are and how attentive each of you are, given this is a little bit out of your routine. So I visit schools every day, every week, and have been doing it for many, many, many years. And I have to say that this is one of the best student groups that I have seen with your guys' behavior. Give yourself a hand. I'm going to take just a few of your minutes and talk about the power of reading. 30 years of research has established a simple formula. Students that read the most read the best. That's important because the best readers perform the best academically in school. And the best readers are much more likely to develop a passion for lifelong learning. Studies show that children who read the most in class and at home for pleasure stay in school the longest, regardless of race, gender, nationality, or socioeconomics. Good readers are more confident in school, have higher self-esteem, and are less likely to engage in risky behavior as a result of being bored. Because we all know if we find a good book, you no longer are bored. According to the National Education Association, people who read for pleasure are 3 times more likely to visit a museum, go to parks, attend a concert, and perform community service and help those around. Literacy is a fundamental building block for success in school, in life, and being members of the society. Today I would like to thank Dr. Carson, the Ben Carson Scholars Foundation, and the Lumsden family for the gift of 5 beautifully furnished reading room environments for all of you to partake in. Through this generous donation, more than 2,200 Sacramento City Unified School District students now have access to a very special place to be readers, to become good readers. This is truly an investment in the future of our region here in Sacramento. Thank you.
I'd like to remind you that there is an acronym that we learned here, and it's the Think Big acronym. Dr. Ben Carson's philosophy promotes outstanding academic achievement and dedication to helping others. And that is why he is here. He is here because he, along with other wonderful people, have helped us. We are opening a reading room. That is symbolic. Today, what I'd like you to do is help me recite the wonderful Think Big acronym. The way we're going to do it is I'm going to introduce the letter, and then I'm going to have you repeat after me. You all have done this because we did this in the cafeteria, and you've done this in the library, and perhaps even with your teachers. The last letter of the acronym, we're going to silently hear Mrs. Arellano out because I want to say something about the letter G. Sign if you're ready. Awesome. T is for talent. Say it with heart, boys and girls. I know you can do this. I know you can do this. Ready? T is for talent. And we talked about everyone having talent, right? Everyone in this audience is very good at something. Maybe we're not all good at everything, but we're all good at something. I've seen you play in the playground. I've seen you learn in the classroom. I know everybody is good at something. H is for honesty. Remember to stay honest with yourself. The first one that you need to be honest with is yourself, and then everyone else around you. Everything that you believe in, and also being honest with everyone that you interact with. I is for insight. We learn from people and books. Raise your hand if you've had an opportunity to learn from people every day. Your hand should all go up because guess who you're learning from every day? From your wonderful educators, your teachers, your profesoras, your profesores, everyone here. And also the books that you're checking out from the library every day. You are learning every time you read. N is be nice to all people. And you all know that if you're interacting nicely with everyone, everyone will most likely have no other choice but to interact nice back. That's the way we do this at Ethel I. Baker, and everywhere you go. You are nice to people, you're polite, and you're going to grow into becoming a wonderful person as an adult. K, knowledge. Remember, you are here learning. So when I say knowledge, we're not just learning the Common Core standards in English, language arts, and math. We're here learning about life, right? Everything that we talk about kindness and being polite and respectful. These are all tools you need to become a successful adult. B, books. Remember, books are for what? Oh, books are for what? They're reading. They're for reading to learn. You're reading to learn. You're reading to learn. That's very important. Books in your shelves, on the coffee table, on your carpet, everywhere you go. You have a book, pick it up, read it to learn. I is for in-depth learning. And remember, in-depth learning is not just picking up a book and just perusing it. In-depth learning is going in, digging deep. Common Core standards are teaching us how to do that. And I know how important it is that you are part of the product of Sac City Unified School District and are learning every day how important it is to learn, to pick up your learning skills and do this every day. Now the last one, I don't need you to choral repeat anything with me. This time, you're going to do an activity very quickly. The G, Dr. Carson's G, is for God. Remember, everyone has their own beliefs, right? You have your own beliefs, I have my own beliefs. Dr. Carson has his own beliefs. I want you to think for a moment, okay? Everybody put on your thinking caps. Ready? Thinking caps. Once you think about what the G stands for in your little life, in your little brain, in your little heart and soul, take a minute, right? Close your eyes if you need to, okay? Turn to a partner that's sitting to your right or your left and tell them what the G stands for. I'm giving you 10 seconds. 10, 9. Now you can share the G, what it stands for, when we go to the lunchroom, you could share it with me, you could share it with your teachers, not right now, but I want to know what the G stands for in your life. I want to take the opportunity to introduce a wonderful person that is one of the very, very important people that we have sitting here. Her name is Candy Carson. Miss Candy Carson, well, let me just say something and then we can applaud for her. Candy Carson is an accomplished musician. How many of you are musicians out there? Co-founder of the Carson Scholars Fund and wife of Dr. Ben Carson. Like Dr. Carson, Candy also graduated from Yale University. Mrs. Carson, would you do us the honor? Let's give her a round of applause.
Good morning. First thing I want to ask you is, how many of you ever get bored? Oh my, okay. Well, you can put your hands down. You know you don't have to get bored. You know what you can do to keep from being bored? Read, that's right. And that's why we decided that it would be a good idea to have reading rooms around the country. So with that in mind, I'd like to give a few thank yous because without all of these people that you see sitting in front of you, without your principal, the committee people that worked on the room, as well as our donor, Mrs. Lumsden, and Al Muller over there with the Excellence in Giving organization, as well as the administrators, you know, your superintendents. This would not have happened. A lot of work went into this, and you know why? Because all of these people care about you and what happens to you. So use this reading room as a tool to help propel you in the future, because you know, the person has the most to do with what happens to you is you, and you'll probably hear my husband say that. So with that in mind, my husband started from very poor beginnings, you probably know that, and he was really the dumbest kid in class, but you know, he didn't let that stop him. Once he started reading, he became the top kid in his class. He went on to become one of the most well-known doctors in the country, and he's been sharing his knowledge with a lot of other physicians around the world. He's done some amazing surgeries because God has helped him with those, but also he wanted to share the knowledge that he had with others and help others to be the best that they can be. So that's why we do these reading rooms around the country. And because of some of the work that he's done like that, he received the highest award in the country, which is the Presidential Medal of Freedom. So you never know where reading is going to take you. It all started with his mother telling him that he needed to read. And because of that, he's done wonderful things, and he's been willing to help you. And I had a chance to help out in that too. So without further ado, let me introduce my husband, Ben Carson.
Thank you. We are so happy to be here with all of you today. Bright, enthusiastic young people. You know, I can remember, it doesn't seem that long ago, although it was, when I was a kid, when I was in elementary school, because when I was in elementary school, I didn't think that I was very smart. And nobody else thought I was smart either. So when something was going on like this program, I would be in the back whispering in other people's ears and trying to distract them, because I figured I wasn't going to get anything out of it anyway. So I figured I would make sure that nobody else got anything out of it either. But that's the kind of student that I was. And my favorite activity was when the recess bell rang, and it was time to go home and play baseball and basketball and football and dodgeball and throwing rocks at cars and all kinds of stuff that little kids like to do. And my poor mother, you know, she only had a third-grade education, so she had to work cleaning other people's houses. It was the only kind of job she could get. And she wanted so much for us to be successful. And she just didn't know what to do, and she prayed for wisdom and came up with the idea of turning off the TV. How many think that's a good idea? Okay, somebody's been indoctrinated here. That's good, okay. That's good. Well, I didn't think it was a very good idea. And I just wanted to watch TV and play, but my mother said, nope, you gotta read books. But she didn't tell us what kind of books we had to read. And I loved animals. And when you go into the reading room over there, you're gonna find lots of wonderful books about animals. I read every single animal book in the Detroit Public Libraries. I just loved reading about animals. And then when I finish all the animal books, I start reading about plants. And then when I finish all the plant books, I start reading about rocks, because we live near the railroad tracks. And what is there along the railroad tracks? Rocks, right? And I would get boxes of rocks and bring them home and get the geology books out, the books about rocks, and I would study them. I was still in the 5th grade at that point. I was still the dummy. Everybody thought I was stupid. But I was learning about these rocks. And one day the science teacher asked, does anybody know what this rock is? And he held it up, and nobody knew. But I did. I said, dare I raise my hand? Because I never raised my hand. But I said, okay, I'll raise my hand. And everybody turned around and they looked and they said, wow, Carson's got his hand up. This is going to be funny. And the teacher called on me. I said, Mr. Jake, that's obsidian. And there was silence in the room because it sounded good. And nobody knew whether it was right or wrong. And finally, he said, that's right, it is obsidian. I said, obsidian is formed after a volcanic eruption, and the lava flows down and hits the water. There's a supercooling process, the elements coalesce, the air is forced out, the surface space is over. They were all staring at me. They couldn't believe all this geological information coming forth from the mouth of the dummy. But I was probably the most amazed person, because it dawned on me at that moment that I was no dummy. I said, the reason you knew all that stuff is because you were reading the books. I said, what if you read books about all your subjects? Can you imagine what the effect would be? And from that point on, I was always reading. If I was waiting for the bus, I was reading a book. If I was on the bus, I was reading a book. In the bathroom, I was reading a book. At the kitchen table, my mother would say, Benjamin, put the book down and eat your food. It didn't matter, I was always reading. And within the space of a year and a half, I went from the bottom of the class to the top of the class. But, you know, particularly when I started reading about people of great accomplishment, it dawned on me that the person who has the most to do with what happens to you in life is you. One of the things that I hated as a youngster was being poor. Anybody hate being poor? Let me see a hand. Okay. Well, I really detested being poor. That is, until I started reading those books. As I read about people of great accomplishment, and I realized that you could control your own life. You could decide how valuable you were, about how much you knew. Then being poor didn't bother me anymore because I knew I had a choice. I could be poor if I wanted to. I could be rich if I wanted to. I could do anything I wanted to do. So it doesn't bother you when you know that you can change it. And that's what I want you all to understand. Each one of you has the ability to do whatever you want, but it requires hard work and dedication. And there was a little girl, one of my patients. She was swinging in the schoolyard in Connecticut, and she fell off the swing and hit her head, and she had a seizure. This is a medical condition where your body gets out of control and you start shaking. And nobody got too excited. They said it's a post-traumatic seizure. That happens sometimes when you hit your head. But the next week she had 2 seizures. And the next week she had 3 seizures. Pretty soon she was having 3 a day, and then 10 a day, and then 30 a day, and then 60 a day. And the doctors in Connecticut didn't know what to do. And they sent it to the doctors in New York, and they didn't know what to do. And they sent it to the doctors in Boston, and they didn't know what to do. But there was an old doctor there. He said, she reminds me of someone with Rasmussen's encephalitis. And he says, with that disease, the seizures will get worse and worse no matter what you do. And eventually you'll have to put her in an institution. And eventually she'll die. And there's nothing anybody can do about it. Well, they were devastated. Their beautiful, precious young girl gonna die. But the mother would never give up. She went to the library. She started reading everything she could about seizures and encephalitis. And she discovered some of the work we were doing at Johns Hopkins with a procedure called cerebral hemispherectomy. It's an operation where we take out half of the brain in children with seizures that can't be stopped in any other way. And they brought her down for an evaluation, and myself and my colleagues evaluated her and felt that she was a candidate for that operation. And when I explained to the parents the risk of surgery, however, that she might not be able to speak, she might be paralyzed on one side, she might be in a coma, or she might die, they said, "Thank you, doctor, but no thank you." You see, we couldn't live with ourselves if she was in a coma or she died, and we never even had a chance to say goodbye. So they took the little girl, seizures and all, back to Connecticut. And that Christmas, she was in a play, and while she was on the stage, she had a grand mal seizure. Fell down, arms and legs jerking, eyes rolled back, foaming at the mouth, losing her urine, and that was sort of the straw that broke the camel's back. They decided they wanted to have the operation. They came back. I performed the operation, took out the left half of her brain. Everything went smoothly, except for one thing. She didn't wake up at the end of the operation. She remained in a coma. And a day, 2 days, 3 days went by. Every time I came by the room, the parents were standing by the bedside, grieving, wishing they had made a different decision. I really felt for them. And a week went by, 2 weeks went by. She used to love a program called Mr. Rogers. Most of you are too young to remember Mr. Rogers, but he used to come on TV all the time. And so they would play tapes of Mr. Rogers singing and saying poetry. Didn't wake her up. 3 weeks went by. No waking up. 4 weeks went by. A whole month. She was in her room at the hospital. Her dad was lying on a cot next to her bed. 2 o'clock in the morning, and she said, "Daddy, my nose itches." And he was so excited, he jumped up and he ran out in the hallway. She talked, only had on his underpants. And everybody came out to see what all the commotion was. And you know, that was the beginning of a rapid recovery for her. In no time, she was walking and she was talking. She wasn't having seizures anymore, and it was time for her to go back to school. Now they were worried. They said, "How will she ever be able to do math? She's missing the left half of her brain. That's the side that you use to calculate. She'll never be able to do it." But that little girl was so determined. She worked so hard. The next year she had the highest math average in her class. And she did that with half of her brain. Can you imagine what you can do with a whole brain and determination? That's what I want you to think about. Now, I'm going to take a few questions. Who has a loud voice and can say their question real loud? Here we go. Okay.
Hi, my name is Sophie Philmon. I am in first grade. Why did you have an idea to give money to schools?
Okay, very good then. Why did I have an idea to do that? Because you young people are the future of our nation. And that's why all of these people are here. They could be somewhere else doing something that's a lot of fun, spending money, buying expensive things. But they decided that what was much more important for the future of our country is if you all develop your brains, become smart, and also compassionate, and you care about other people. That's what's important. And I want you to take the example of your principal and your teachers, because they're very good role models for you. Don't look at those people you see on television who call people names and act like doofuses. That's not who you want to be like. You want to be like responsible people, but develop your brain and care about other people. That's why we do it.
One, two, three! No, that's this.
Oh, is that ribbon too?